Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be ranking every Lost Zone card in the standard format. If you want me to rank the ones in expanded or outside of expanded as well, comment that down below because I'd be happy to do that, though I'm not as well versed in some of them. Some of them I don't know very well at all. I mean, admittedly, some of these standard ones, I bet you don't know all these standard ones. Like the other Rotom V, we'll get to that. But yeah, let's just hop into it. There are not 43 standard cards, there are 43 if you count arts, but there's only 23. Yeah, I was waiting for it to pop up. So 23 cards, that's not a lot. Most of them are from Lost Origin. If we look here, Comfy Poos Experiment, Giratina V-Star, they're from Lost Origin, right? They are not, this art is not from Lost Origin, but they are. Then we have Lost Vacuum, same thing there. It has just a different art. It's not a special art, but and then Absol is unique, Rotom V-Star, but then Rotom V was also, I believe, in sorry, there's two Rotom Vs. So the one Rotom V was a promo exclusive, so that one's not from Lost Origin. And then there's the Rotom V, which the one that people actually play, which was from Lost Origin. But anyways, let's just start talking about these cards here. And I'm going to focus more so on the bad cards, I feel like. The good ones, let's be honest, we all know that they're good. There's no point in saying, like, so where should we start? I'll start with the, like, Lost Zone package, and then we'll talk about them. I'm not just going to put them all in S tier, I guess. Maybe I will. They are really good. I'm a big fan of the Lost Zone deck. I don't play it that often, but I think it's really good. I play it some. It has some inconsistencies and is kind of difficult to play, but I like it. It's fun to play with. It can be fun to play against. It can be annoying depending what you are playing with, but it's a good deck as well. It's very good. So I'm gonna put Comfy in S tier. No, I'm just gonna probably put them all in S tier. I'm gonna put Cramorant in A tier. I feel like it's not that good of an I mean, it's pretty good. A tier is like still good, and this is comparing it to the entire meta. So Cramorant is like the simple card of Lost Zone. If you have 4 in the Lost Zone, you just attack for free. You do 110. It's okay. But then Comfy, put stuff in the Lost Zone. I mean, it's the most important card to Lost Zone, I think. There are other cards that are important to Lost Zone, but it's like the Lost Zone card, really. If someone says Lost Zone, or if someone says, what's the card that represents Lost Zone, they'd probably say Comfy. Then Giratina V-Star is S tier. I'm probably going to put that at the top. I think it's one of the best attackers in the game. I mean, it's not super insane right now. It's still like very playable, but it's not like one of the best attackers. I mean, it's still a pretty. I'd say it's an important attacker in Richie Draco V-Star though, and that's a top deck. It's a pretty clear S tier card. Then we have Poos Experiment. That's also S tier. I'll actually put that above Comfy. Could be used in other cases. Don't know if it belongs above Comfy, but it is S tier. Sableye, I'll put in S tier as well. It's below Comfy. It's an attack. No, I'll actually drop it to A tier. I guess it's not. No, I'm not sure. No, I'll say S tier. It has, a spread attack. It's really, really devastating for a lot of decks. It's kind of hard to set up, but it is generally regarded as the finisher in the deck. Mirage Gate. This is how you power up pretty much every attacker. This will actually be the top card in this tier list, I think. It's an S tier. I think the S tier is going to be a little too filled up, so I'll drop Sableye down to A. It's important, but it's not like the most important card to Lost Zone generally. These other 4 are like so important to Lost Zone. Then we also have Lost Vacuum and Rotom V. I think those are both S tier cards. Lost Vacuum will go. And I'll just put it here. The ordering of tiers doesn't matter that much. Though I will say Sableye I do have above Cramorant, definitely. But Lost Vacuum, I mean, if we look at it, a lot of these cards have a lot of tournament play. Like, Sableye. Okay, tournament results. These are not all the tournament results, but these are some of them. And, look at this. This is so much play, right? So, yeah, that's a lot of tournament play. Lost Vacuum also has a lot of tournament play. But these are all different decks. There are Lost Zone decks, but there are Charizard decks, Control decks, Excalibur, Chimp-How decks, Lugia decks, Arceus decks with Giratina, Dialga decks, Angel Box decks, Future Box decks, Feraligatr decks. I mean, every deck can play this. So there's a bunch of different things here, and yeah, any deck in the entire game, Gardevoir. There's so many decks, right? Like any deck in the game could put Lost Vacuum in. If you're familiar with Field Blower, it's not as good as Field Blower. Field Blower was really good. It kind of almost defined the format. Lost Vacuum doesn't define the format, but it is a very important card for the game. I mean, it's the only way to get rid of tools, I think. I'm sure there's some way that I'm forgetting. I mean, there are attacks to get rid of tools and stuff, but it's the main way to get rid of tools, and it's also arguably the main way to get rid of stadiums. You can bump it by playing your own stadiums, but whatever. It's very important. And then Rotom V, I'm also going to put in S tier. Actually, no, I'll put it in A tier. I feel like it could go in S tier in terms of like play. It's seeing a lot of play. No, I'll put an S tier. It's a little different. Its ability draws 3 cards, ends your turn. This is that one. There's the other one, which we'll get to. But Rotom V is an S tier card. It sees play in a lot of decks. It's to me, Zacian V, if you're familiar with that card, Zacian V is Rotom V, but better, essentially. And so it always like seems kind of underwhelming to me. Zacian V was, really good. Um, so so it always like feels a little underwhelming, but it's still really good. It's arguably a staple card. I wouldn't really say it's a staple, but if you're playing a stage 2, it's like really stage 2's decks or control decks or both. It's a staple really. So we can see in Charizard, Charizard's very, very good. You can see it even in something like Lost, so not as an attacker. Although this list you can attack with it. Its attack, you Lost Zone tools in your discard pile, and it does damage based on that. The V-Star also does that. We'll talk about the V-Star some too. The V-Star is kind of weird. Also, this deck's kind of weird. This is one that I just clicked on. But next now we get to some of the more difficult things. I'll do Giratina V next. This is definitely the weirdest. It might not be it's not the weirdest, but it might be the weirdest to rank on this list because it's a pre-evolution. Like this isn't people aren't really playing Giratina V for Giratina V. They're mostly playing it for Giratina V Star. You could play Giratina V in Regidrago, and I guess you could play it for the Shred attack. In Regidrago, it is played for the Shred attack, which hits through effects or any effects on the defending Pokemon. So if your opponent's playing Mimikyu or Corsto Mask Ogre Pontiac, so the V-Star can hit that, but Regidrago V-Star cannot, or whatever, it hits through stuff. It's kind of good, but I'll put it in A tier. This is definitely one that its ranking is kind of just weird. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, what tier I put this in. It's not super important. If you put an S tier, it's fine. You could put in, not F tier, but you could put it like, I could see C tier, somewhere between C and S tier. Any of those are fine. It's very different than these other cards. It's not played in its own right generally, but it can be played for that. But I'm not just going to judge it on that because that's kind of weird. Now, let's talk about the other ones that C play. I'm probably just going to go from the top to the bottom, but the bottom, like C through F, is going to be a little weird. So Delphox V, we got Aerodactyl V Star C's play, and Lost City is very good. Lost City is probably an A tier card. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. So Lost City, if you don't know, if Pokemon's knocked out, it goes into the Lost Zone. This card also has seen a lot of play. In my opinion, it's not like the tier of these other cards. In terms of play, it might be. I'm actually going to drop it down below Sableye Cramorant, but I know some people love it. It's kind of to me, it feels like the default stadium. It kind of allows you to, of course, Lost Zoning cards, the big thing in the Lost Zone, it's like the discard pile, but you can't get stuff back from it. The Lost Zone mechanic does, like there's a Lost Zone deck, we want cards in the Lost Zone, but generally you don't want cards in the Lost Zone. So this kind of allows you to neutralize your opponent's threats and not have to, I talked about Mimikyu, but you can knock out a Pokemon like a Mimikyu just once and then they can't recover it. So if you can get through it once, that's okay. You don't need to get through it 5 times. So that's really that's useful. But I feel like people just like toss it in as well. Like I feel like Iron Thorns, I feel like it's kind of tossed in. If you look at older decks like BUV Max is a very, very good deck, but it just has Path to the Peak, but Path to the Peak can definitely hurt it. So you just have this Lost City, which is a generic stadium. You put Lost City into play, and it gets you, it like helps you some, but doesn't help you that much. It doesn't hurt you, so it's just kind of fine. And even in a lot of these decks, it's just okay. It's not insane. Arceus V-Star decks as well, Lost Zoning stuff is fine. It's not bad, but it's good. But, you just play this if your opponent's playing Path to the Peak, because Path to the Peak is bad for this deck, especially with Lone Vulpix V-Star, which is a walling Pokemon that walls abilities. So, I think it's not to the same level as these other cards. It's a very good card, though. A tier cards are still quite strong. Then we have, let's talk about Bouffalon, actually. Bouffalon's a pretty fun card. It's a control card, so I like it. Lost Headbutt for 3 colorless. And by the way, I'm judging it in the context of the format now. This card gets better with the next set. I think it's like the only card on this entire list that's definitively getting better with the next set. So that's kind of cool, but that's not out yet. The next main expansion, which would be Stellar Crown. There's another Boufflant that just gives it more either HP or it takes less damage. I think it takes less damage. So Lost Headbutt, though, does some damage, not much, but it does some, which is actually bad. But for 3 colorless, you put an energy attached to your opponent's active into the Lost Zone. If we look at the decks it's played in, it's all control. And yeah, it's not played in a ton of decks, but control does play it. This is going to end up in the, I think, C tier. It's not a great card. It's niche in its use cases, but it does allow you to counter certain things and is an option. It's not a great option. 3 energy is hard to pay. It's not. It's 3 energy that are all colorless on a basic. It could definitely be worse, but for the decks it's played in, like, let's just take a look at this top list. In terms of energy acceleration, we have nothing. I mean, you technically have Chiyu EX, but that can't actually accelerate any energies. So you don't have anything, and the energy would not go to Boufflant anyway. You do have Thornton, which kind of acts as energy acceleration, but it's not energy acceleration. So you have double turbo energy. It is only 2 attachments, but it is 2 attachments, so that's something you have to be very careful of. And it definitely struggles to work in my experience. It does work sometimes, but you need to be setting it up over time. But Boufflant is pretty, it's all right, you know. C tier is like the all right tier. Definitely, you could play it competitively. I'd actually say it's a card that if you're playing casually, it's not very good. It's not like terrible casually, but it's not like that good. But it's better competitively than it is casually, which is pretty interesting. That could be true for actually a lot of these cards, anyways. But then we got Delphox V. Delphox V has 2 attacks. The first attack is kind of bad, but it does burn and confuse for 1 fire. This is definitely something that I see used like way too much. It's not good, but when things aren't going well, it's okay. It's some damage, and confusion is like you can just kind of say, oh, I'm going to confuse you. You need to coin flip to win the game, or like finds a switch or something. So it can potentially buy you a turn. But Magical Fire is the attack here, which, oh, by the way, of course, these are Lost Zone cards. They all interact with the Lost Zone in some way. Rotom V, yeah, so Rotom V, I think as its attack puts like your own tools in the Lost Zone. Some of them aren't really like related to the Lost Zone. Though, like, let's be honest, Rotom V, like, it's not played because it interacts with the Lost Zone, and the times it interacts with the Lost Zone are almost never. So in actual play, you could play a Rotom V deck, which, as I said, we'll talk about with Rotom V Star. But Magical Fire puts 2 energy from the Spike one into the Lost Zone, which could be a double turbo energy. If you do, you will still be doing less damage, but and also it does not cost 2 colorless energy, but it is for 2 fire and a colorless, 120 and 120 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This is played in what I describe as Firebox decks. You could put it in Lost Zone decks as well, but that's because they are playing fire stuff. So these are all in some ways fire like toolbox decks. We have different fire attackers, and this is a solid one, I'd say. It's behind NTV, but NTV is I'd say it's like a very safe card, a card that does a bunch of different things. Like, okay, I mean, it works into a lot of different decks. Okay, it has decently high HP. It's relatively cheap to attack with. It has an ability that draws cards, and it also has, solid damage. It can punish your opponent for a big bench, but Delphox V can be used for these very like big turns. Delphox V is also gonna go. No, this will go in C tier. Yeah, I think C tier feels okay. It's definitely a card that is more obviously good than Boufflant, but at the highest level, I'd say Boufflant's better, because I don't know. I think Pidgeot Control is like a theoretically, when played very well, a very good deck. This isn't like just a tier list of the top competitive stuff that's kind of like not so useful, but it is taking that into consideration. So that's why I think Boufflant is in the same tier as Delphox V, even though these are very different cards, where Boufflant seems kind of bad at face value, and then Delphox V is, it's spread damage. It's kind of like Radiant Greninja, but it's better. You could look at it that way. That's not real. That's kind of weird. It doesn't hit 2 bench Pokemon either, but in some ways it is like a better Radiant Greninja in terms of its attack. So it's a solid card, but also Fire also is not the best type. It's kind of bad. Fire Energy is okay with Charizard EX, but that's not a fire Pokemon. It's not really a fire deck, I wouldn't say. Next we have I'll talk about Aerodactyl V Star. Aerodactyl V Star is a card I like a lot. So if you don't know, the deck that won the World Championships 2 years ago, it did other things, but I think what it's known for is winning the World Championships is Arceus V-Star with, I want to see if I can find it, with Assume Destroy V-Star and Flying Pikachu VMAX. So, no, what AD? I don't know what these decks are. So, Barbarous V-Star, which won the World Championships, and I'm sure I can find it here somewhere, but it had those 3 attackers. The Flying Pikachu VMAX was this like tech attacker. We found Pikachu, so this isn't the deck. Flying Pikachu VMAX really, I think, is known for that. I'm just gonna look at tournaments. I normally Anyway, let's find the World Championships 2022 won by Flying Pikachu VMAX, Arceus V-Star, and Hisuian Decidueye V-Star. Flying Pikachu VMAX is, well, it's not in the game right now, but it was good for quite a while. It would honestly be quite good now as well, but you had Arceus V-Star, this like safe attacker. Talked about Entei V being like this safe attacker, good into lots of things. Same thing with Arceus V-Star, and you had Hisuian Decidueye V-Star. It's really mediocre though. So this came out before Aerodactyl V-Star, but I think Aerodactyl V-Star is better. It does have 10 less HP, but it is weak to Grass, which is better than Psychic, and it also has this attack that just does more damage. What it does, this is a weird card as well. It's one of the weirder attacks in the game, and it says Lost Dive. This is not the weird attack. 240 for 3. Put the top 3 cards of your deck in the Lost Zone. Obviously, Lost Zoning 3 random cards to your deck is not good. You can't ever recover them. Even if you are playing Lost Zone, it's like okay, but realistically, it's just bad. But 240 is a solid chunk of damage. And then you have this V-Star power that says until this Pokemon leaves play, it gains an ability that says the effects your opponent's Pokemon V in play, except in the Aerodactyl V-Star, have no abilities. And so it's kind of like the Stadium Path to the Peak. In standard format, it's not. I'm judging these mostly on standard format, but it's okay. I think I'm gonna put it in C tier. No, I'm gonna put it. Yeah, I'll put it in C tier. I'll put it below these two. It's definitely worse than standard now, but I do feel like what it's done in the past, and it's like still kind of viable now. I think it's okay. People don't really play it, but it is an okay card. Definitely, it's not. I feel like D is like bad. F is really bad. But yeah, I feel like C tier feels pretty fine for it. Next we have, this is just a mess of cards. Let's talk about Bayet next. This is arguably a core Lost Zone card. It doesn't see that much play. No Lost Zone, no, a few Lost Zone decks have played it, but no like Lost Zone boxes. Anyways, Bayet, it has this ability, also it's attacks Spooky Shot. I guess that's not like that crazy. I was just thinking that's like a very like generic name. That's like kind of weird, but Puppet Offering is the ability. This is also a weird name. I mean, most of them are weird. Most of them say Lost in them, or a lot do as well. But Puppet Offering, once during your turn, you put a supporter from your discard into your hand, and then a Lost Zone Bayet. This is interesting. Obviously, if you played Expanded, Versus Seeker is like super good. It's kind of like this, but it's an item, not a Stage 1 Pokemon. Lost Zoning itself is kind of interesting. You can play in Lost Zone next to feed your Lost Zone. If you played alternate formats, like GLC, but then also other alternate formats as well that are single prize focused. If you're playing a Lost Zone deck in those formats, you will often be putting Bayet in, and you Lost Zone yourself, which isn't like really bad. It allows you to get a supporter, and it's okay, but it's not great. I'll put it in C tier as well. I think it's a little underrated. Recovering as a supporter is nice. It allows you to play supporter have versatile supporters, and like just a bunch of different ones. In this list, we don't see that much of a diversity, but we do see Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking and 2 copies of Professor Tur's Scenario, but you can repeat that. And so it does give you some really solid options that are kind of fun. Also, the main reason it sees play is, it can see play in the Lost Zone, but you could play it in Bayet EX as well. Bayet EX is a pretty solid attacker. It's not great, but it does see some play. And then part of why it is good is because you can play this other Bayet, which is pretty fun. And then you can play different supporters, but like you don't want to rely on it because like kind of a mid to late game card. So it's a little sketchy, but it is kind of fun. You look at Lost in Guillotine, and we see a 1/1 line, and the supporter is like 1 Boss, 1 Iona, or 1 Roxanne. Not that crazy, but it does allow you to get those a little easier. It's just an okay card. I feel like C tier is fine. It's like, there's a bit of diversity in the power level of these cards, but that's true in any tier. Next, let's talk about Fantina, the last trainer on this list. This one's really weird to talk about. You can only use this if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. So this is, I think, the last card on the list that's like, you have some Lost Zone requirement. The big ones, of course, are Mirage Gate, Sableye, and Cramorant, as well as, I guess, Giratina V-Star. I didn't talk about Giratina V-Star, but it's just really good. And its raw stats are really good. But those have some requirements, but then so does Fantina, which is 10. So I guess there's Sableye and there's like Giratina V-Stars, V-Star Power if you have 10 and lost on. But during your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 120 less damage from attacks from Pokemon V. The big issue with this, of course, in standard format, most decks aren't Pokemon V attackers. There's a time at which this was true and it was okay, but now it's pretty terrible. I'm gonna put this in. I'm gonna put it in F tier. It's like a late game card. It is not a terrible late game card, but it's not great. You're losing your supporter at the end of the game, which is probably like a boss for game. It might not be, but it could be. So I'm gonna put it in F tier, and I could see it in D tier. And admittedly, when it came out, it was like okay, but I feel like it should have said Rulox Pokemon because this card's so useless now. Like it's useful in a few matches, but a few matchups, but even then, it's not great, and then it's useless in other matchups. Then let's talk about Porygon II with the attack and garbage attack. Like this is like who named this? Garbage attack? This is like obviously like it can't be that good. Its attack name's garbage attack. So it is not great. It does 20 damage for each Pokemon tool in the Lost Zone. Oh, this is both yours and your opponent's. I did not know that's what it did. Both yours and your opponent's. I forgot that. That's kind of cool. I wish the Lost Zone interacted with both players more. Like, Sableye, it's 12 or more cards in the Lost Zone, but it's your Lost Zone. So I definitely think it would be cool if Lost Zone interacted between both players. But anyways, so this is, not hitting that much. If you have 10 tools in Lost Zone, which is already a bunch, that's 200, which I guess is really solid. But if you have like 8 or like 7 or like 6, I feel like that's kind of what you're looking at. Then you're hitting like one, like the mid 100s, which is not very good. So this card is pretty bad. It's not. Is it better than Fantina? I actually do think it is like kind of playable, but I'll put it in D tier. It's like meme deck potential. You could play it with the Rotom V as well. So let's talk about Rotom V and Rotom V Star. And so Rotom V has the one that sees play has the same attack, but it does 40 less damage, which is actually not that much less damage. So yeah, but you have the attack Scrap Pulse for 2 lightning. It does 80 base damage and put any number of tools from your discard pile into your Lost Zone. Does 40 more for each card you put in this way. Then you have the ability Conversion Star. And this card is, this is not a lot of play. It has seen some play. You can play it with the V Star, like a deck where you want a V Star power if you're playing Rotom V. Of course, Forest Steel Stone is really good, so you probably just play that, but you could put Rotom V Star. It says once during your turn, it's in a V Star power, so you can use once during your game. You can use it, discard any number of cards from your hand, draw that many cards. It's not like terrible. There's situations when it's kind of good, but also like not that many, right? So this card's not very good. I'll put it in D tier. I will put it above Porygon 2. It is like kind of funny, and if we didn't have Forest Steel Stone, this card would be seeing play, but we do, and yeah, it's frowning in the picture. Rotom V is smiling. I feel like that says it all. This card is not so good. It's not like the worst, but it's not great. Then I guess we got to talk about the other Rotom V. This card is super weird. Most people don't know this card exists, I don't think. But Lost Tack is the Lost Zone attack. Put a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon into the Lost Zone. I think I play this card in a deck, and like of course a control deck. And this is kind of interesting as like a control option. Then you have Extreme Current 160 for Lightning Colorless 160. As I said, discard energy from this Pokemon. It is Lightning though, so you can boost its damage. That is true with Rotom V as well. So Rotom V can actually be hitting more damage than Rotom V Star in certain scenarios, which is kind of funny. But with the other Rotom V, the good one. But this one is not good. I'm going to put it in F tier, I guess. I feel like its use cases are like so niche. I don't think I've ever seen anyone else play this card, maybe like once, but it's like so niche and obviously not that good. I feel like F tier like makes sense. So yeah. So then let's see, we got a bunch of random single prizes. So I guess the best of these is Shiftry, and this one has Fan Tornado, 50 for 1, Grass, and force your opponent's active to the bench. But the big attack here also have 160 HP, but this doesn't really matter because you have the attack here, Tearing Gust, which says 210 for 1 Grass. Put this Pokemon all attached cards into the Lost Zone. This is power up your Lost Zone, but the big thing is it's 210 for 1 energy on a stage 2, but it's a single prizer. It's hit and run. It's kind of interesting. I guess it's like, is this D tier? I'm gonna put it in D tier. It's really awkward, but like, it's good. It's good in mutant format, but no, it's kind of, it's a solid like damage output attacker. It's obviously, lost on yourself is not great. I mean, it is hit and run, but also like you really don't want to be doing this, but its damage output is pretty good and it's pretty cheap. So like 210, it's a solid chunk of damage. It's kind of like Palafin, the single prizer, which again isn't great, but it's like kind of sort of playable. So yeah, a D tier is not good, but whatever. Then we have Absol next. This one, I don't think I've seen anyone play this. I've seen people play Shift 3, I think, or at least talk about playing it. But Absol here, 70 for 3, put a random card from your opponent's hand in the lost zone. You can also do 30 for 1. This is the most like mediocre card here. It's really the only just super generic Lost Zone card. These other three are kind of generic. Maybe not Barbarical, but the other two are definitely kind of generic. But this one's even more generic. This is from Crown Zenith. It's like we want to go out with a bang with Lost Zone. Let's print Rotom V-Star and Absol. So this card is not very good. I'll put an F tier. I don't really know what to say about it. It's super generic. It's not like some objectively terrible card, but it's objectively not good. So there's no reason to ever play this. Like its amount of hand disruption. I mean, technically it could win a game. You could like really annoy your opponent, but it's not very good, right? So yeah. And then we have Magcargo, which is 220 for 3 on a stage 1. This one did apparently see play in a tournament. It's a fire type, and so if your opponent's playing like Dalga V-Star or something, you can go in and one-shot it with this, and you put all energy attached to it into the Lost Zone. It is only one reversal. You're not using this to power up your Lost Zone. You could, I guess, but that's kind of bad. But I think this card is, I guess, the bottom of D tier. It's not very good, but I guess it's not terrible either. It's like getting one-shotted, but you could just go in with this and like Infernape or something and just knock stuff out. It's not very good. And if you want to attack with it regularly, that's really hard because you're going to be lost owning your energies. So that's really rough. But it's 220 is a good amount of damage. So I guess it sneaks its way into D tier. It's not good. No, it's F tier actually. I changed my mind. This is worse than the Rotom V. Next we got Barbarical. Lost Block. This is an interesting card. Its ability, Lost Block. Also, it does 100 for 3, 130 HP. Just generic stuff there. But Lost Block, your opponent puts any prize cards they would take in the Lost Zone instead of their hand. This is pretty cool. Pretty weird and not that good, obviously. I feel like if it was a basic, you could play it and it would be pretty solid. Might even be too good, but it's not, right? I don't even know if it would be too good. It would just be annoying, but it would be, I think, balanced if it was a basic. But it's not. Actually, no, it wouldn't be too good yet. I definitely think it definitely wouldn't be too good. It stops your opponent from like going in, like relying on what cards they're taking off the prizes. But the big like thing is like what you're doing with this is you are saying like these are cards that they wouldn't really have access to anyways because they're prized. So now they're just in the lost zone. But that doesn't really matter that much. But it's pretty bad. I'm gonna put it in F tier. It's kind of funny and fun conceptually, but it's going F tier. And we have no cards in B tier. I'll put Giratina V in B tier. It doesn't matter. I want to round out the tier list though, so that's fine. It doesn't, as I said, it could go anywhere from C to S, and it doesn't matter. Then we have Stonejourner. That's not going in B tier. I guess that was a mild spoiler. Attach up to 2 fighting from your hand to your Pokemon any way you like, or Lost Shot, 120 for 4. Put the top card of your opponent's deck in the Lost Zone. I mean, this card's obviously not good. It's going to go in F tier. It's just a super mediocre card and really boring, but this one might be more generic than Absol. I'm not sure, but anyways, that's the list. Yeah, tell me what you think of the bad Lost Zone cards. So I'm really interested. Did I underrate any cards? Do you think that I should have put Rotom V in S tier, the other Rotom V? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, kicking the bell, and joining the channel as well. Then that's the best. It's not the best way to support me. The best way is to comment and subscribe and like and just watch the video. But if you want to show support, you can also join the channel, and I really appreciate that. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.